Hey guys, Mozu with Negron Tech here, and today I'm bringing you my full build guide on the Pure Dot Void Knight. When I think of a Void Knight, the aspects of the Void, darkness, rot, time manipulation is what comes to my mind. I didn't want to make a Void Knight that relies on Paladin abilities, that relies on Sigils of Hope, or proccing Smite. I wanted to make a pure Void Knight that didn't have to worry about mana, and I wanted to make a Hammer Throw Void Knight. So here's what I came up with. Now, compared to my other builds, this is going to be an extremely simple build to pick up and play that just relies on one button to do damage. You have your 1 DPS skill, your hammer throw, and then you have 4 other skills that are going to bring utility buffs and big DPS cooldowns. We are a pure dot Void Knight, focusing on Disintegrating Aura Hammer Throw for our main source of damage. Disintegrating Aura is interesting because it is not a sub-skill of Hammer Throw. What does that mean? It just enhances the hammer throw. This is going to mean that any increases besides the passive tree, more modifiers, flat modifiers, the hammer throw will also affect Disintegrating Aura damage, which is good for us. In addition, it's also going to scale by itself on void damage and damage over time. Our other primary sources of damage will come from Time Rot, Future Strike, and Doom, which are all void damage dots, ailments that will scale as well. Additionally, as a pure Void Knight, we're going to use Abyssal Echoes, Volatile Reversal, Anomaly, and Devouring Orb as well as our other 4 skills, but I'll get into that more later. So for our defenses, armor stacking and block are going to be our primary defensive mechanism, with massive Void Leech giving us amazing life recovery. Alright, so I talked a little bit about Hammer Throw already, but to get really in-depth with it, right? So I mentioned how it is not a sub-skill. Sometimes when you have a sub-skill of a skill, let's go to Devouring Orb, you have Void Rift. Void Rift has its own skill tag, right? That means it has its own separate modifiers that are going to affect Void Rift. Let's say we have a modifier that increases Devouring Orb damage. That would not affect Void Rift because it is its own skill. Not its own skill, it just, again, enhances, amplifies already existing Hammer Throw, but has separate modifiers. Again, it does not scale with nodes on the tree. It only scales with affixes from gear and things from the passive tree. Now, one nice thing about Disintegrating Aura is that it scales with damage effectiveness, which is going to mean any throwing attack, void throwing attack, will affect Disintegrating Aura. That's very good because not only are you getting the innate benefit from flat added throwing, but you're going to get the flat added throwing to hammer throw and then also Disintegrating Aura. Now, that's not as good as you think it is, you know, because the thing is about hammer throw is that from my testing is that it has the void tag now. This does not mean hammer throw is now a void skill. You still have your hammers that hit. They are still going to be physical, right? If they were void, this build would be disgusting, right? But, you know, we can dream. So what that means is that the hammer throw is still physical, and then our Disintegrating Aura, the dot, the AoE from the hammer is going to be the void portion, right? So, unfortunately, it's not like, oh, well, hammer throw is void now. Like, now the hammers are going to hit really hard. It does not work that way. So, that's hammer throw. Pretty much the biggest issue with this is mana. I'm going to have a whole section dedicated to mana, but with Iron Spiral, Disintegrating Aura, that's a 16 mana cost increase on an already hefty mana throw. I ended up getting it down to 11 mana, and I'm only using 1 T6 affix. That's all you need with my gear setup, right? So that is pretty much it for hammer throw. It's very simple. We want to scale flat added. That's going to help a lot. And then we also want to scale increases of void and dot damage. That's going to be our big damage multiplier scaling Disintegrating Aura. Next up is going to be, I'll talk about that last. So we'll talk about Anomaly next, because this is probably the stereotypical, like the massive, iconic Void Knight skill, right? This is amazing. What you need to do here is go Time Bubble. You get 100% uptime on Time Bubble, right? It lasts for 5 seconds. 100% duration, now you're at 10 seconds. We have a 12-second cooldown with 0 cooldown gear. We don't have the helm. We have nothing else that provides cooldown on our gear. And you'll still get 100% uptime while you're in monoliths. You pretty much just want, this is the most important thing you want to use on cooldown, right? You also have it linger for 2 seconds. So it lasts for 10 seconds. The effects linger for 2 seconds, which is massive. And of course, the time bubble follows you. So you get huge leech regen, huge leech. You get massive attack and cast speed. You can take a point out here and get more leech if you want. Personal preference. immediacy is pretty much required because the thing is about you trigger your time bubble as soon as you cast Anomaly. If you do not have immediacy, the cooldown for Anomaly does not trigger. So what happens is the reason why you get 100% uptime, you cast Anomaly, you get your time bubble, and it immediately goes on cooldown. You'll get it back in 12 seconds, and you have 12 seconds of time bubble stacks. Additionally, you get a little bit of time rot, not really important, but it does help because time rot is 12 max stacks, so I'll get more in depth on that in a bit. But you get Mark of Rot, right? So when they return to the present, and again with immediacy, they return instantly, you get a 100% taken multiplier on enemies. What does this mean? I talked about this a bit in the last video, but you'll see the theme here that I'm going with the Pure Void Knight, as everything we do is going to have the enemies increase damage taken. It's the last step in the damage algorithm, right? Like the damage calculation, you have your more, your flat, your added. More is the best, added is very, very good, increased is good, but not the best modifier. Enemies taking increased damage is not multiplicative on top of each other. So 100% here, and then dots being 24% is not 100 times the 0.24. Does not work that way. So pretty much every modifier that has the enemy take increased damage, it's all added up into one, and then that's calculated at the end. It's not like 100 times another 25. Then that would just be ridiculously broken. But this is still very, very good coveted modifier, right? So this is what Anomaly brings us. Massive utility, massive damage. Let's go to Devouring Orb. I don't know why I just messed around with the gear a little bit. I ended up messing up my skill tree, but the big thing with Devouring Orb is it adds a little bit of clear speed. Definitely early on, once you get to like 150 corruption, you'll see the clear speed from Devouring Orb fall off with the Void Rifts. But the big thing here is getting 10% global more void damage and 10% increased mana. This needs to get maxed out 100%. And then the only other mandatory is going to be Abyssal Rush, which gives you 6% movement speed, attack, and cast speed. Now that we're not a spell-based build, but we do cast a good bit, so it's a nice quality of life. From here, everything else is kind of personal preference. You can go Abyssal Orb if you want. That works too, but I don't like it too much. I just like getting the more hit damage, more reliable for single target, I feel like. And then getting more duration and time rot chance is nice because that just means we just get more time rot. And without gear, it is difficult to get time rot chance on hit because all the time rot from the tree is pretty much melee, right? You get melee chance here, think you get melee chance here, right? So like it is a little bit difficult, but with pretty much just one idol, you solve all your time rot chance on hit because we're doing 3 hammers. So really you get to like 20%. You'll get 100% uptime on 12 stacks. It's not a big deal, you know, but everything else here is personal preference. Don't really else know what to say. The big things here are going to be the global more mana regen and the speed, and then, you know, get some duration. Duration is very good, so you don't have to spam it all the time, right? Because this is more of a quality of life build compared to just spamming Sigils of Hope. All right, we'll talk about Volatile Reversal now. This is utterly insane, and this skill is so goddamn good. This is the biggest damage increase this build has because what's going to happen is that you're going to have the enemy take 90%. Again, we are a dot focus build. They're going to take 90% more damage over time from us. That's insane. But we also max out our time rot. So now we're going to have a global 48% more multiplier for 2 seconds when we Volatile Reversal. Now, you can travel back further in time. You can get some points here to get a longer debuff time, which would be very, very nice. Getting 2 points here would be huge. But you'll see in some of the clips that like this is by far the craziest damage multiplier. And I actually think that some of these skills are bugged because I've done testing where I have no time rot stacks and I use Volatile Reversal, and the damage, theoretically, it's only 90% increase that the enemy's taking compared to Anomaly, which is 100. And I swear to God, just from feel, it is not the same. Like this, without time rot stacks, should not be the same amount of damage. Should not be more than Anomaly because they take 10% more. I don't know why. It makes me feel that this is actually bugged, but you know, it is what it is. I really don't know, but this is absolutely insane. And what's going to happen is that we have a 5.3 second cooldown on this. Why? You might be thinking, oh, well, if you have such a low cooldown, Mo, you have no mana regen. Again, I'll talk about it in the gear section, but look at that mana bar. We have zero mana problems with just 19 mana regen, right? And it takes nothing away from your damage. I'll explain later. But again, 50% cooldown reduction, the health regen on cooldown does not really matter. We lose 4 health regen. Who cares? This is the big thing, because the thing about Sigils of Hope is that everybody, oh, Sigils of Hope, and I don't know why people are just so locked onto this. You Sigils of Hope 3 or 4 times, and then you get all your mana back by this way. Why don't you just not use it, and you get other huge damage multipliers, right? So that's the thing. 300% cooldown recovery speed. You know, it's our biggest damage increase. It's our biggest multiplier. I'll talk about the combo later, but, you know, you can just go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you just go to town, right? And the nice thing about this is that it's an instant cast, so if I'm just spamming on a boss, I keep spamming and I get the proc, which is awesome. The way the proc works is that when we leave our timeline and when we come back from our timeline, we summon 2 Void Rifts at the start and at the return. Each Void Rift is gonna, well, not each one, but because it just says anybody hit by the Void Rift, so it doesn't matter which one, they will take the increased damage over time and the increased void damage. And then also we get our global void damage per time route. So that's how you build it. Getting more points into this is massive, right? Because getting another 2 seconds onto the global void damage per time route is huge. 48% more multiplier is nothing to scoff at, guys, right? So the last one to talk about is Abyssal Echoes, right? And after I talk about this, I'm going to talk about scaling, and then I'll go into passive tree. But what's going to happen here is that this provides, again, because as a throwing build, we don't get innate time rot chance to hit except for one idol, and when you're leveling, when you're starting to play the build, you don't have that time rot chance. You're probably not going to get an idol like this early enough. You get nether coating, which gives you 5 seconds of huge damage multiplier and attack speed. Now, attack speed is very valuable for our build, because even though Time Rot and Doom have max stacks, Future Strike does not. So getting up massive Future Right stacks is very good. And of course, we get reliable Time Rot chance. Really, you can drop the idol if you want, but the idol is just quality of life while doing monoliths, because I don't want to spam Abyssal Echoes on cooldown, right? I don't want to use it every 5 seconds because it doesn't really feel good. But for bosses, you want to have this up pretty much as possible. And what's going to happen is that it does not have the DPS per second, but it applies Abyssal Decay, which is a debuff on the enemy. What's going to happen is that it does dot damage, and then if you hit them, the Abyssal Decay comes off, and the whole dot damage gets dealt immediately. Now, we have 2 hit categories in our build, which is Devouring Orb and Hammer Throw. Going back here, what we want to do, because it does blind enemies, and them being blind is going to give us a damage buff. We do not want to consume Abyssal Decay. We want Abyssal Decay to stay on, because it's a very good damage multiplier. Remember, we are scaling increases to void, increases to dot. Those are our big scaling multipliers for this build, and I'll talk about it in the gear. But we get down to here, what's going to happen is that the Fizz Resist, not really a big deal because we're not a physical build. Abyssal Decay causes the enemy have reduced physical resistance, but it is no longer consumed. What does that mean? Now when we hit them, the damage is not going to get consumed and happen, which means it's a big damage nerf. But the important thing is that the decay lingers, so we are able to trigger damage over time taken. Another 24% damage over time multiplier at the end of the damage calculation that the enemies take, right? So we want decay to last off, but we don't want to not do damage. So this node here, Impair the Weak, is excellent. So normally it lasts for 6 seconds, right? It gets a 45% increase, so it's almost at, let's say 10, 11 seconds, right? What's going to happen is that, let's say you do 100 damage, right? Because this is not going to deal the damage over time. The damage, a portion of the damage, the total damage will trigger on hit. Again, we are on hitting with the hammer, and we are on hitting with Volatile Reversal, and then you have orbs. I'm sorry, we're hitting with the Devouring Orb. With these orbs too, you get echoes, stuff like that. So what's going to happen is that pretty much within 10, 11 seconds, we need to be able to hit 20 times, right? If we hit 20 times, we get a net damage equalizer, right? Not really, because we don't consume the decay, so just having the decay up is a net plus. But what's going to happen is that if we're able to attack, let's say 40 times in 10 seconds, and it's not really out of the realm because we have so many on hit, your Devouring Orb, let's say it triggers the Abyssal Orbs, those are going to hit. You get increased duration, you get increased, let's say, what is it? I forgot here. You get Echoes, so then you get more on hit. Same thing with Hammer. You get 3 hammers that are going to trigger immediately every throw. And the one thing is that we get attack speed from Abyssal Echoes. We get 20% here, 20% from Time Bubble, and then we also get 6%. That's a 46% attack speed buff with all our things that you see. It's pretty damn fast. It's very, very easy to outweigh the negative that we're not doing the dot damage. Now it's triggering on hit, but the big thing here is that it still scales with dot. It counts as a damage over time, so we're not losing anything. We're scaling Abyssal Echoes as well, and you know, you hit more than 20 times during the duration of Abyssal Decay, big damage increase. And those are the skills. So you kind of see how everything works together. Every single thing synergizes with itself, right? Aura is going to synergize with the increased damage. All these spells, and again, you might be thinking, why are you using all these when you just Sigils of Hope, besides the mana concern, and you get a global increase? Mo, these are spells. We don't scale spells. It does not matter, because what is the difference between doing 159% increased void damage and 159 increased spell damage? Spell damage is limited to the spells. Void damage still affects our spells. Even though we're not a spellcaster build, we're still scaling the hell out of all these spells, especially Abyssal Echoes and that Abyssal Decay. Very important, because Disintegrating Aura, again, it's not a spell. So just by scaling dot and void damage, we scale our pretty much our 5 damage sources: Abyssal Echoes, Decay, Time Rot, Disintegrating Aura, Doom, and Future Strike. Next up, I'll talk about the passive tree. This is what it's gonna end up like. It's very simple. And then what I'm going to do is that we're going to go 20, 17, 16 in the Forge Guard. Forge Guard gives us a lot of defenses. Let me go here. So a lot of people requested this, so I'm going to try to do this pretty fast. They want to like get a lot of comments in the videos where it's like, oh, why can't you just do step by step? So Sentinel, you're going to get your max Vitality. Vitality is very good because it scales the spells, and it gives us takiness, but it does not scale our Disintegrating Aura damage, unfortunately. Then we'll just go 1 in Juggernaut. You go 1 in Block Chance here. And then very important, Ironclad. You actually want to get this immediately. And you want to get 10% reduced damage taken from enemies nearby. Very important, because we are always going to be in melee. So you'll be at 14 points here, and you have 6 points to really do whatever you want. Valiant Charge is very good. If you want to do Valiant Charge, you can do that. If you want to do Strength, you can do that too to get to 20. But what I'm doing right now is just a Strength, only because getting the resist is a little bit of pain in the ass until I really sort out the gear. The cooldown reduction of Valiant Charge and the health is probably just going to be better. You could also forego Juggernaut and then go just a little bit more damage here, but the increase of damage is not very good. 5% per node allocated, or point allocated, is not strong to me. Valiant Charge is probably the best one. You can do that, but it's all personal preference for those last 5 to 6 points. So Void Knight, you get 1 point here. Smite is Void. We don't care about that. We need to get that to max out Void Bolts. We're going to max out Abyssal Endurance. You're going to max, 2 points. You max out Void Bolts. You want to get Future Strike. You want to get all the Leech. You want to get Vitality is not really too good. Early on in leveling, I actually put 5 points of this until I got my gear sorted out. Getting some max mana and some mana regen is very good. Echo Chant is huge. And you see, like, you just go down the tree like that. If you want to, is it going to do everything? Yeah, it did everything. Let's just do this real quick. I'm sorry. But if you want to do the block chance there, sorry, zoomed in here. If you want to just go like this, get to the next one, like, you can just do a more balanced approach like this and get to the next tier and go like that. But really, like, the tree is very simple. Like, I don't know why so many people ask for this, because like, oh, why don't you just do while leveling? Guys, you know, just, you got 5 points here, do 5, do 5, do 5, do 5, you know, and then as you get to monoliths, you finish out the build like this. But there's not a lot to real talk about here. Everything is obvious. Some of the issues that Void Knight is heavily melee focused, so we don't get the benefit of a lot of things. You can go Time Rot Chance here and forego an idol, which could probably increase your damage because you can get another, you know, 120% up to 150% increased damage from an idol. But the issue with this is that it just feels like a wasted point. Putting points into this when we could just put 1 point into here. And even though with the reduced attack speed and mana cost, the Echo Chance is too good. Like 10 points is a big thing just for 10 Echo Chance. And Echo is good, but it's not that good to where we're wasting increased melee attack speed when we could be. Like if that was throwing attack speed, it'd be a completely different story. But we're very focused on getting nodes that are gonna affect our entire build, not just one small portion. So Void Aegis, very good defensive. Void Flux, another good defensive. And then, you know, get really good mobility. Nice increased Void. Very good because we do not have a mobility skill, but we get 70% base movement speed, which is enough for me. And that's the passive tree, guys. All right, next up, we are going to talk about gear. So gear is very important. While you're leveling up, I pretty much use this set exclusively. Oh, I already put it in my inventory. The Forgotten Knight set is insane, right? When we're talking about throwing attack builds, the big negative is that weapons don't really affect your throwing attack because unlike this Scepter, if we are a melee hybrid build, we get spell damage and melee damage, right? Like there's no builds that have plus 50 to throwing damage, right? If there was, that'd be awesome, but there just isn't. So all weapons are for us are a stat stick. So what's gonna happen here is that getting, you know, you do get the 65% increased void damage, you get haste on hit. The attack and cast speed is awesome because you can't get throwing attack speed on your weapon. So getting it on this one-handed sword, the set piece is very good. You also get spell void damage, which is nice, and the haste is very nice. And then the locket is not good. The crit sucks. The crit chance, we are not a crit build, but the time rot chance is very good. And then void riff on a 2-second cooldown is good too, and increased void damage. And then also this shield is insane. So the way I look at this shield is that I'd rather use this than Bulwark of the Last Abyss or another Exalted Seal, but Bulwark just provides too much armor, too much block chance, and too much block effectiveness, right? And as you get into Corruption, surviving does become a concern. So again, the thing about Time Rot Chance on hit is that you can free up this idol, get rid of this, and then get another coveted Adorn idol that can give you, these are like the real good ones. You'll see the range, 76 to 85%. You're getting over 100% possibly increased void damage, 100% uptime, which is massive. So the Time Rot Chance, you got to look at it like, okay, this is going to free up another slot. It's about the totality of the build, right? And then getting 102% increased void damage, you cannot get this modifier on any other shield. And the thing about Bulwark is that Apocalypse is only 70%. It takes away 25% of your life, and then it also gives you melee crit multiplier, which does nothing for us, right? So you can use this probably for bosses if you want. And then, of course, talking about the set, the Void Pen on Time Rot is not really big, but another, what's that, 36% more multiplier that you're doing globally. This set will carry you to like 150 corruption, 200 corruption. I'm pretty sure I can use this set right now, and I really wouldn't lose much just because, you know, 36% more multiplier is massive. So I keep saying we do not have mana problems, right? So how do you solve the mana issue? The biggest way to solve mana is to know how to craft, right? And you'll look at this scepter and you'll be like, holy crap, Mo, that's an awesome scepter. Thank you, man. I really like this weapon, right? Jokes aside. So this is the scepter that we want. Again, as a throwing build and a dot focus build, melee damage, spell damage do nothing for us. The spell damage affects the spells, but it's not going to affect Disintegrating Aura, and that's our main damage. We want to buff Disintegrating Aura. So what we do is get any type of scepter wand. I don't think there's any wands that have dot damage as implicit. So this is our #1 ability. Let's see if I can roll that higher. Yeah, I'm going to re-roll the implicits, try to get that to 80, because I got forging potential. But that's for another day. But probably the best in slot base weapon. And of course, what you want is void damage and dot damage on your prefixes. But Mo, what about our mana? We have mana problems if we don't. We have mana problems if you have no mana regen, and we don't go mana regen endgame in the tree. We don't want to waste points over there. So the way you're gonna craft these is that you're gonna, preferably you want something with an open prefix, or you want an exalted void damage or exalted damage over time. And then you either want an empty prefix or you want mana and mana regen. The thing about these weapons, and it took me forever to really learn this, is that no forging potential. Nope. What's gonna happen is that your Glyph of Despair, it has a very high chance to hit when it's a T2 or T3. A T4 Glyph of Despair is really, really not likely. Like, we should get it here. You see, like, getting T2 or T3 mana regen is really no issue at all. See if you do it again, orange. Oh, you can't. Sorry. But, you know, that's how you want to do it. You want to have one exalted prefix that is void or damage over time. Open prefix, slam or craft on your mana and mana regen. And then you're going to seal it as a T2 or T3. If you want to be safe, do it as a T2, right? Same thing with this. I think this is a T3. I got lucky with that one. Well, not really, because T3 is easy. But the point is, don't overplay your hand. Go with the T3 mana regen, and all of a sudden you got an amazing scepter like this. And what's going to happen is you put this on your amulet too, and then all of a sudden you now have over 50% increased mana regen. Now, why do I like that number? Because I hate this relic. I really, really hate it. The only reason why I'm using it is because it gets armor mitigation to dot, and you need at least one source of armor mitigation to dot. Preferably, I would get it on the gloves and the chest, but I'm not there yet. I haven't found a good exalted base for those because they are pretty rare. But generally, what you really, really want is to get probably like 75% increased mana regen, which is really, really not hard at all. I think I'm over 100 actually. I'm at 50, 100. 128, whatever that is, right? But pretty much these gloves are not best. You want the dot gloves and you want the dot body armor, but you really want to get 70% to 100% increased mana regen, and that will take care of all your mana problems, even without having Volatile Reversal. Recover your mana. The only time you'll ever have a problem is single target with mana, but it's really not an issue, guys. And I'm sorry I'm talking about this a lot, but that's pretty much how it really works. Like, I'll see if I can't do that one. See if I can do this one. So, like, let's say, like, let's pretend that's let's pretend this is void damage, right? You're gonna slam on mana and mana regen, go a hope, you get 2, you despair, you sealed it. It's really that simple. Don't get too crazy with it. You know, that's all you need. Start off with a T2, and then again, let's pretend that's void, and then you're just gonna go dot. Oh. Well, you can't craft that on this one. Let's see if you do damage over time. You should be able to. So that'll be your void damage, and then you just Glyph of Hope, and you spam your damage over time. And then from there, for your other ones, you can really put whatever. I have health on kill, which is nice for monoliths, and chill. You can go blind. Shock might be nice, because shock will increase your stun chance with time rot, which increases stun duration. Very, very good synergy there. But you see, the way I crafted this, all you need to do is find an exalted base with void or damage over time. Bam. Mana regen up to T2 or 3 to spare it off. And there you go. You have your end game weapon just like that. Very, very, very simple. You do the same thing with amulet. I need to get a new amulet. Hopefully get a T5 pen or void damage. But that's the theory behind it, right? Until you get, let's say, the damage over time. This armor piece right here. What is it called? Until you get a champion regala. Just use a Agri plate. It just helps the mana regen, right? But that's pretty much it. So that's talking about the gear. But another thing about gear is that two things are very, very important here. You can go throwing damage all on your gear, but the issue with throwing damage is that it only affects one portion of your damage. I talked about it more in my last video, but last Epoch is about the totality of your build, right? It's not PoE where you just scale one method. Like, you have to be able to scale different things all at the same time. So you can go flat throwing damage everywhere that you can get it, like the belt, the gloves, the relic, but the issue with that is that it is only affecting Disintegrating Aura. I don't know if Doom shows up here. It does not, but Doom, pretty much, it's 400 base void damage a second, and it stacks up to 4 times. That's disgusting, right? Like, for every flat added throwing that you have to throwing damage that's going to affect your Disintegrating Aura, that's scaling that you're not giving to Doom, Time Rot, and Future Strike. So I need to get a whole new gear set where I completely focus on flat throwing, like get throwing on the Siphons. You'll see I just been farming the hell out of Orabos, or however you pronounce his name, trying to get 2 LP Siphons, but not a lot of luck. So, you know, throwing here too, like, I don't know what is better, but I know that just scaling, to me, the totality of getting flat, void, flat damage over time, affecting all of our damage at the same time instead of just one, in theory, it seems better. So that is why I do that. So again, everything is increased void, increased damage over time. You want to get your health and hybrid healths when you can. Your belt, your gloves, your chest, getting percent health is very, very important. And again, guys, when it comes to your pieces, I'm very, very big on this. Seal Despair T2, T3. Get ahead while you can. Don't get too greedy with T4s. Like, it's probably not going to happen. I got to replace this, but again, void damage and void damage over time when you can. This helmet sucks. Increased echo damage is not really, really good because it just increases the echo damage. If this was void damage, that would increase the totality. It would still increase the echo damage, but it would also increase our damage. So the only reason why I'm using this is how I get the crit immunity, helm, and boots. I don't like this relic. I'm only using it because armor mitigation, the dot, you need at least a little bit. Hopefully I would get the gloves in the chest eventually, but I'm level 96 and I still haven't got a good craftable base, so that is not good. And that's pretty much it, guys. The biggest thing here to talk about getting the end game is that you get yourself a Siphon or the boots that give Doom. Doom is just disgusting. Again, at max stats, 1600 base dot damage. To put that into perspective, like Time Rot, it does 55%. It's got 12 stacks, but you know, like it's what is that? Let's just say 550. It's not actually 550. 600. Be like 700 damage, right? Maxed out. Doom is 1600 base, which is crazy. You're gonna have 100% uptime, so that's that. Now, talking about the damage, right? So I talked about how the damage works and how you actually fight single target bosses. You Abyssal Echoes, you make sure your Devouring Orbs up, do it again, you cast a little bit, you cast your Anomaly, and what you want to do is wait until you get 12 Time Rot stacks. Go here, right? And then once you get your 12 Time Rot stacks, you're gonna Volatile Reversal, and then you're gonna get massive damage. That's when you start seeing it in the 100Ks. It gets kind of crazy. You get 12 Time Rot stacks, you do it again, and that's how you get your massive burst. And again, it's only a 5.3 second cooldown the way we build it, and you'll see I'm spamming, guys, and you have no mana issues, right? Like in a single target scenario, you will be moving around a little bit. It gets you, you know, avoid mechanics, and that's how you maintain your mana really high. And again, the threshold for mana regen that you want to go for is 75% to 100, and it's really not hard, guys. Like, you'll see it's not hard at all. Just by getting a T2 and T3 on your weapon amulet, and then maybe going this chest, your mana problems are pretty much solved, right? You might not be able to spam as much as I do, but you know, with proper gear and investment, you see how it ends up maintaining itself. So I do want to talk about the filter, because every single video somebody asks me about the filter, and I don't want to give you guys a filter because there really is no point. I might just cut this and make it into its own video, but the thing about my filter is that I have my endgame weapon. So why am I gonna have a filter for my weapon, right? So I will show you how to make your own filter. Please watch this portion. I'll label it, we'll emphasize and recolor, because I like to recolor. So what endgame weapon do we want? You have two choices, right? You have the scepter, so you go item type. This is the absolute endgame version that you want. You go to subtypes, you go to damage over time right here. Again, the melee damage does nothing. The spell damage helps the spells, not too important, but the big thing is getting an implicit dot, because we can't really get that anywhere else that high. Then you add a condition. We are looking for an endgame weapon. All we want is rarity. All we want is exalted, right? That's it. And then you're gonna go affix, and you go with at least one advanced options, more or equal to 6, which means that the individual affix that we are looking for is 6 or 7. It's exalted, right? So what affixes do we want to be exalted? All we want is damage type. Again, as I said, you want void damage and or damage over time. Those are the two things that you want to be for your endgame weapon. Now, let's say you just got to maps, and it's not going to be easy to find that, right? So what you'll do is you'll just get rid of this, every scepter in the book, right? And you keep it as exalted, maybe, or what you can do is keep it just being that Argent Scepter, and you get rid of more or equal to, and you get rid of exalted, and this way you'll get, okay, I'll get a good starter scepter, and it's got to have at least 3 or higher of the dot or void damage, and that gives you a base to work with until you're able to get the exalted endgame scepter, right? So that's that. Early on, and I'll get rid of these because I already have my weapon, but that's how you create your filter to get the weapon you want. Now, let's say you have really big mana problems and you can't get the mana regen on other gear. Just copy that and change the weapon to, let's say, a wand, right? You go wand, and then you go crystal, I believe it is, and you go crystal wand, and now you got some more mana to work with, and you can use that as an endgame too. I don't recommend it, but if you want to go that route, you can do that too. Same thing, guys. Nothing crazy with it, and that's how you make your own filter. Now for armor, I have all exalted. I have everything I need except for the bases. So at this point in my character build, I'm only looking for 16 affixes. Pretty much you're going to go like leech, parry, whatever, all the crap that you want. The big ones are going to be health, the damage, and general, right? You can also add some sentinel specific ones like void here, like void damage over time. I gotta fix this, the levels, all that shit. You could even just do this, actually. Do that and keep it that way, right? So anything exalted with those affixes, I'll go with that, right? But before that, what I normally do, as soon as I get to monoliths, I check all the sentinel affixes, the idols. This is actually wrong. It should be this. I don't know why. And then, you know, we do need some mana because we do want mana regen and mana on some of the pieces. Not all. The movement speed's good. Go cooldown, leech, parry. But the big ones are going to be health. General, the damage types, you can go that route too. You can go health recovery. Whatever you need, if you want to add more armor and you want to use those types of armor pieces, then do that, and that way you emphasize any armor piece that has that, right? And that's that. You see how I recolor the boots? These are the endgame boots I want. So because they have the crit reduction, those are the boots I'm going to use, right? So I can't give you guys this filter because every filter is going to be different. There's going to be a filter for getting the monoliths. There's going to be a filter while leveling. There's going to be a filter where pretty much, like, let's say I get my body armor. All of a sudden I'm going to do this, and yeah, I could make the whole filter for you, but I'd rather teach you guys how to create your own filter. And I think that's pretty much it. The shield drops from Fall of the Empire. So farm that pretty early, you know. Get to 200 corruption. Farm that. Go... You do the gaze of Ouroboros, whatever you, for the rings and or boots. Go with that, and that's pretty much how you target farm the uniques. It's only 2 uniques. This really isn't even needed. All this really gives you is some taking this to 70% increase void. I'd rather just use an exalted shield. Most of the time I use this, but you know, getting a bulwark with 2 LP, that changes a lot. Pretty hard to get that, but you know, it's all that. Oh. Now I gotta talk about idols. One of the most important aspects of the build, because idols for us are poggers. They are poggy. I am using Singularity. It is only more hit damage, but the way this works is that, again, any increases modifiers to hammer throw that are not in the tree affect Disintegrating Aura. So in theory, we should do 18% more Disintegrating Aura damage. We might not. I don't know, but I'm using it for now, just testing it out. Their own idols are going to be huge. Why? Again, I talked about it earlier, but you get a 76 to 85%. Even if you get it in the mid-range, you're getting 100% increase void damage over time is just massive. Like, I'm still trying to get better ones of these. You really do want one grand idol with higher time rot chance. This solves all your time rot issues, especially when you Abyssal Echoes with nether coating. And then time rot duration is very, very good too, because one thing to note about ailments. Alright, so talking about duration, what's going to happen is that if you increase the duration, you increase the damage, but you're not really increasing the DPS, if that makes sense. You're going to do the same damage over the period of time, but the big thing again is just maintaining the stacks. So the duration has innate value in the set when you're using that, and then Volatile Reversal, the 48% more multiplier, making sure we're always at 12. For monoliths, this is very, very nice. Getting inspiration, just reduce CDR. It's not really huge, but it's pretty nice to have like more consistent anomaly procs, you know, more damage multiplier with anomaly, and not having to use it on cooldown, get a little bit cooldown reduction. That's very, very nice. And then again, you know, the time rot hit. That's pretty much it. Idols are very, very important. You don't have to use these, but you really want at least 2 of these, preferably 3. But you know, I like the utility when it comes to duration, dot damage, and inspiration for monoliths. And we definitely need at least one of these grand idols. Mostly with Negron Tech here. That's pretty much it, guys. Much more in-depth video. This is going to be a long one. I apologize, but hopefully I covered everything. And again, a lot of people should have made the last video for the level 70 build guide. It's just like a build concept. Like, give me a break, okay? Right now I'm doing 200 corruption. It's not difficult at all. It's very, very, very smooth. I'll put Ouroboros kill somewhere in here. But you'll see in the maps and the arenas, like, the only thing that's a little bit slow is the single target bosses, but it's really not bad at all. Oh, 211 corruption. But it's a very smooth build. Very, very enjoyable playstyle. I hope you enjoy the video. And most of Negron Tech, have a good one.